right, thank you all for tuning in to WJC 98.3 FM, your voice and music, your station. My name is Jeff Badu, and I'm a parallel entrepreneur and a wealth multiplier. I'm the founder and CEO of Badu Enterprises, LLC, which is a multinational conglomerate in the finance industry. And what we do is we provide a suite of financial services, including tax preparation, financial coaching, credit repair, and other financial services. Today we'll be keeping it short today, just talking a topic on building multi-generational wealth. I know we've talked about it before, but just want to recap it. Want to make sure that everybody understands it, why it's important, especially in a time like this when we're in a pandemic where tomorrow is not promised. But before that, let's kick it off with the market report, and that's as of October 9th, 2020. Last Monday saw stocks start the week on a high note, with each of the indexes essentially posting notable gains. The Russell 2000 led the way, adding 2.8%, followed by the NASDAQ 2.3%, the S&P 500 1.8%, and the Dow 1.7%, and the Global Dow 1.7%. Treasury yields and crude oil prices rose while the dollar fell. Energy, healthcare, and tech ultimately led market gains. Investors were encouraged by word that President Trump was expected to leave the hospital and return to the White House. That news, coupled with the possibility of fiscal stimulus in the near term, also helped propel stocks higher on the day. So ultimately, the stock market went up on Monday because of the fact that our president recovered, which is a bit ironic, but ultimately, the whole recovery phase, and then also the fact that the stimulus bill, they're expecting it to be passed soon. I mean, that one is still at a standstill right now. But basically, we need a new stimulus package to come out pretty soon, and ultimately, it hasn't been released yet. Now, let's talk about Tuesday. Stocks plunged last Tuesday after President Trump, of course, the man who ended up boosting the market on Monday, also took it down on Tuesday. He called off stimulus talks until after the November election. Can you imagine? The announcement came after Fed Chair Jerome Powell warned that the economy would likely regress without additional fiscal stimulus. Prior to that announcement, stocks were up as investors anticipated a deal was in the offing. By the end of trading, mega caps, technology, communication, services, and airline were sectors that were ultimately hit hard. Each of the benchmark indexes essentially fell. The NASDAQ lost 1.6%, S&P 500 lost 1.4%, Dow went down 1.3%, and then the Russell 2000 went down 0.3%. Global Dow also went down 0.2%. Treasury prices surged, pushing yields lower. Crude oil prices and the dollar advanced. So Tuesday wasn't such a good day. Let's talk about Wednesday. What happened last Wednesday? Equities rebounded last Wednesday as the president appeared to ultimately soften his stance. So, I mean, I don't know what it is, if it's bipolarism or anything like that. But he basically, everything was all good Monday, and then Tuesday it all went downhill because he said that he wouldn't want to pass a bill. And then Wednesday he changed his mind. I guess he might have slept and ultimately changed his mind on Wednesday. So Wednesday, the president appears to soften his stance on halting stimulus negotiations until after the election. Each of the benchmark indexes essentially went up. So it's like literally a roller coaster ride that just kept going up and down, up and down. Russell 2000 went up 2.1%, the Dow 1.9%, NASDAQ 1.9%, S&P 500 1.7%, and then the Global Dow is 0.9%. Treasury yields jumped ahead by 5.8%. Crude oil prices fell after reports showed that stockpiles increased. The dollar fell and against a basket of currencies. Sectors that perform well include communication services, consumer discretionary, industrials, materials, and information technology, or IT for short. So that's what happened Wednesday. I mean, the president changed his mind about the stimulus on deciding to wanting to pass it at least. So Tuesday, his mind was no, I don't want to. Basically, Monday his mind was I want to pass it. Tuesday his mind was I don't want to pass it. And Wednesday his mind was I do want to pass it. So his mind literally changed 3 times in a matter of 3 days, which is a bit scary, to say the least, for a president. Stocks posted a second consecutive day of gains last Thursday. So we actually had 2 consecutive days. And why? Because hopes for fiscal stimulus outweighed a larger than expected number of unemployment claims. So this whole fiscal stimulus thing is still the reason why the market is going up and down. If investors hear that stimulus is about to be passed, they get excited and the market goes up. If investors hear that fiscal stimulus won't be passed, investors get sad and then the stock market goes down. So it's more of an emotional battle than anything. But we did have a higher than expected unemployment claim or jobs, essentially unemployment report. Treasury bond yields and the dollar fell while crude oil prices rebounded from the prior day's retreat. Energy, utilities, financials, and real estate let the market surge. Russell 2000 went up 1.1%, which posted the largest gain for the second day in a row, followed by the global Dow 0.9%, S&P 500 0.8%, NASDAQ 0.5%, and the global Dow 0.4%. Equities got a jolt last Friday following President Trump's call for a bigger fiscal relief package. So not only does he now want to pass it, but now he wants an even bigger stimulus package. And to this day, what's today? October 12th, 2020, we still don't have a fiscal stimulus package passed. And we were supposed to have one months ago. People are suffering. The economy is doing pretty, that one is a bit iffy. But overall, the economy is actually not doing too well, as fiscal stimulus has not been passed, which is pretty scary. Our elections are coming up next month. So it is something to watch out for. It is very political right now, to say the least. I'm personally not big into politics, but when it messes up with the money, you must talk about it ultimately. So while the president said he favored a relief package larger than what was proposed by either Democrats or Republicans, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell warned that no deal was likely before the November election. So we're still here where it's like nothing will get passed until the elections goes through. And even after that, of course, if we have a new president, they have to go through a transition period. It's not like he'll sign a bill right away. He'll have to go through transition. He'll have to get trained. He'll have to go through his thing in order to make sure that he holds his office. And if our current president remains, then who knows? We might not ever get a stimulus bill passed. People will continue to suffer, and the world might crumble, at least from a financial standpoint. But nonetheless, the number of COVID-19 cases rose in several areas. So COVID-19 cases are actually up, something to watch out for. With Europe emerging as a new hotspot. So in the past, they were very hotspot. I remember Spain, Italy, super hotspots. And now Europe is also back to emerging as a new hotspot. Ultimately, each of the benchmark indexes advanced by the close of Friday's trading, led by the NASDAQ 1.4%, followed by the S&P 500 0.9%, the Dow 0.6%, Russell 2000 0.6%, Global Dow 0.5%. Treasury yields rose, while crude oil and the dollar ultimately fell. For the week, the NASDAQ and the S&P 500 each posted their best weekly gain since July, climbing 4.6% and 3.8% respectively. The Dow advanced 3.3%, the Global Dow gained 3.9%, but the week's big winner was the Russell 2000. That's more of the smaller businesses, which shot up 6.4%. Sectors that helped drive the market last week were energy, healthcare, industrials, and IT, information technology. For the year, the Dow is back in the black after this latest surge, joining the NASDAQ and the S&P 500 as the benchmark indexes with values ahead of the respective 2019 closing values. So in short, the stock market is up this year, even during one of the worst financial years in the history of the world. We're still up in the stock market, which is insane, by the way. I think it's insanity. Now let's continue here. Crude oil prices went up from 37 to 40.54 per barrel. Price of COMEX gold went up 1905.40 to 1934.20. So far this year, the Dow Jones is up 0.17%. The NASDAQ, composed mainly of technology stocks, is up 29.06%, so that's the big winner. I remember telling you that if you're not in tech, you should be in tech, because tech is the future. Tech is here now, and tech is also in the future. S&P 500, composed of the top 500 companies in the U.S., is up 7.63%. The Russell 2000 is down 1.85%. The global Dow is down 5.47%, which means the global market as a whole isn't doing too well. U.S. is outperforming the world tremendously. Federal funds rate is at a mere 0%. And then 10-year treasuries are at 0.77%. This week, what to look out for is the latest inflation indicators are available with the September release of the Consumer Price Index, or CPI, the Producer Price Index, and the Retail Sales Report. These are figures that are known to determine inflation levels. The CPI is up 1.3% year to date, while prices at the producer level are down 0.2%. Meaning that essentially producers probably had to lower their prices due to COVID-19 and all these other things going on in the world. You have California dealing with fires. You have some places like Texas, and they're dealing with hurricanes. And I mean, the world is going through some tough times, to say the least. But now let's talk about if we left this planet. Since there's so many crazy things happening in the world today, what if we were to leave this planet? What will we have to show for it? What can we pass down to our kids and our loved ones that will benefit us for the long term? So this is building multi-generational wealth, and as an added bonus while saving for taxes. You get the best of both worlds. Now, one of the ways the rich keep getting richer, quote unquote rich, I always like to put the word rich in quotations because it's been taken to be a term that's negative, a derogatory sort of term. I mean, I don't know what's up with the term, but I like to put it in quotations because it can be misconstrued a little bit. It can be misinterpreted. I don't know what it is with it, but I think it's more of a mindset that, hey, if you're rich, you're a bad person or something like that. It's just this negative connotation with that. But one of the ways the quote-unquote rich keep getting richer is because they continuously build wealth on a multi-generational wealth basis. They continuously pass the wealth down from generation to generation. That's why when one generation starts, they're not struggling. They're not suffering. They're not pinching pennies, pinching nickels or anything like that. They've got somewhere to start, a foundation to start with and continue. And some people might say, well, what if my kid basically runs off with the money? Well, that's why we have a trust fund that can have stipulations within a trust. You can put within a trust that the child doesn't get anything unless they go through a 4-year education or the equivalent, which will be determined by an attorney as to what the equivalent is. And they have to show proof of their 4-year degree once they graduate. So these are things that we all have to think about because at some point we will leave the world. Nobody stays here forever. We will leave this planet at some point. And some of us listening today have kids. Some of us have loved ones that we care about and we want things to pass down to them so that we can continuously build the future. They teach their kids how to build wealth early. And I mean early. At the age of maybe like 3 or 4, maybe 5. Very early on in the game. And they can also utilize their kids for tax write-offs. Not that there's anything wrong with it. It's just an added bonus. Far beyond the ones the average person is typically aware of. As we're building wealth, we should aim to teach our kids wealth building principles along the way, and also ensuring that we leave a legacy, because when we go to the grave, we go alone. Nobody goes with us. And when we're in the grave, what do we want to be remembered for? What do we want to be known for? Do we want to be known as somebody who put a burden on other people with funeral costs, debts, and all the things they left behind? Or an abundance of wealth? Talking about life insurance, businesses, real estate, and just pass it down from generation to generation in a smooth way too. Unlike our beloved Prince, who unfortunately died without a will nor a trust, and he was sued for millions and millions of dollars. His estate ultimately lost millions of dollars, and he didn't have a whole lot to show for it when it was all said and done. Or even Aretha Franklin, or even Pablo Picasso. A lot of these famous folks who died without any sort of estate plan in place. It's very important to get an estate plan. While you're alive, you should have at least a will at a bare minimum. And then once the kids come in, you should have a trust. Typically, it's a revocable living trust that basically determines who gets what when you pass away. Or basically just making sure things go smoothly. You don't have to go through what's called probate, which is a very intense process with the courts to determine who gets what. So people are suing Prince for child support, that kids he never gave birth to. I mean, it was crazy. Unlike our beloved Michael Jackson, who's making millions of dollars in his estate right now. And anytime you click a YouTube video and you watch a Michael Jackson video, guess who makes money? Michael Jackson. Because his ads on YouTube are earning him revenue in his estate. That's right. Even as a dead man, he's making money. Millions of dollars every single year. So one way to build multi-generational wealth is for the business owners. Or if you're not a business owner, consider being a business owner. Is you can hire your kids in your company. You can actually, let's say you have a business. Maybe you're a retail shop, or maybe you're a law firm. You can actually hire your child in your business where they provide you services and you pay them just like you would pay anybody else. Remember that the rich pay very little in taxes. And remember, I put the rich in quotes because it's it's a very sensitive term, I would say. But the quote-unquote rich pay very little in taxes because of the way their income is structured. If you haven't read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, I highly encourage you to read it. In the book, and it changed my life forever, he mentioned that there's two groups of people. Those who are on the left side of the cash flow quadrant and those who are on the right side of the cash flow quadrant. The left side are basically those who work for money. That's your employees, somebody who's working a W-2 job, maybe at a hospital, maybe at an office, maybe an assistant. And then you have your self-employed, somebody who's a one-man shop and just does their own thing. They're basically working a job, but now they call it a business because they've quote-unquote incorporated it. So those folks tend to pay the highest amount in taxes. When I learned that, I quickly realized that I need to be on the right side. The right side of the cash flow quadrant is the big business owner, one who hires employees, one who builds a business so that it can work for them as opposed to them working for the business. And then also a real estate investor. So ultimately, it's a business owner, a big business owner, and a real estate investor. Those folks tend to pay very little in taxes, if any. And the reason why is because of the way their income is structured, how they can, I don't like to use the word manipulate, but basically how they can strategize within the code. Remember, it's all legal. So they can strategize within the tax code so that they can gain some benefits. When they start a company, they can utilize their kids for tax benefits as well. You too have access to these same tools, by the way. It doesn't discriminate. The tax code does not discriminate as to what race can get a certain tax deduction, what ethnicity can get a certain... The tax code has no such restrictions. Trust me, I've read it and I know exactly what I mean by that. So you too have access to these same tools. Your name does not have to be Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Jeff Bezos, or Elon Musk. You can be you're a business owner. You can be a real estate investor and still have access to this. So hire your kids and put them on payroll, quote unquote, to pay their expenses such as daycare, school. I mean, instead of paying their expenses directly. So let's say that you're a business owner, or let's say you're a W-2 employee, and you pay $1,000 a month for daycare, which I've heard is very conservative. But $1,000 a month for daycare, and you're paying it out of pocket, you don't really get a tax deduction for it outside of a small $600 credit, child independent care credit. Instead, you can get a big tax deduction of $12,000 by hiring that child, paying them a salary, and instead they pay their own daycare with the money that they've earned. So here's the way it works. They can help out with simple tasks such as cleaning. You have to hire a cleaner anyway, so why not let it be somebody that you love, like your kid? Taking out the garbage in the home office or in the office. Nowadays, a lot of people are operating out of home offices. Why not hire somebody to help you clean your office, pay them a salary, and then you... Actually, let me get to the sweet part later. It gets a lot sweeter. But basically, you're paying them a salary, paying them their daycare. And what you can do is you can deduct that amount that you pay them, let's say up to $12,000. That's the standard deduction, by the way. And they don't pay any taxes on the $12,000 that they earn. So you're basically getting $12,000 as a deduction for free. But they can help out with simple tasks, cleaning, shredding paper. I mean, fun stuff. Just fun stuff that, somebody would be doing anyway. Or they can handle more complicated tasks such as managing social media. Nowadays, my little sister, I think she got her first cell phone at the age of like 9 or 10. Nowadays they can manage social media. They know what they're doing on the phones and the computers. So that can easily be a role that they play. Each kid should have their own bank account, and you typically have to co-sign for them or basically be the custodian if they're under the age of 18. Now, if you want to take it a step further, you want to make sure that you set up a trust for that child. Or essentially, have the child be the beneficiary of your trust so that you can have things go smoothly. That way your trust documents will determine all of these things. If the child is under 18, there's no W-2 form or 1099 required to be sent to that child. You typically should not pay them more than the standard deduction, which is $12,000. If you pay them more than that, you might face some unnecessary tax consequences. Basically, the child might have to pay a tax on it. And there's a question, won't you need their social security number to get the deduction? Not necessarily. Well, so when you have the employment agreement, you can lay out what their social is and everything like that. But on a tax return, on a business tax return, you don't necessarily have to. There's literally one line item called contract labor. And so you would deduct that as the amount on the business tax return, let's say an 1120S S Corp tax return. It doesn't really request that type of information. It just asks, how much did you pay your contractors throughout the year? And you can say, I paid $12,000 to a contractor, which was the child. So one sweet thing about hiring kids under 18 is that kids under the age of 18 aren't required any FICA tax or self-employment tax. They don't have to file a tax return as long as you don't pay them over $12,000, which is the standard deduction. And then there's no need to withhold any payroll taxes because they don't file a tax return, nor are they subject to any FICA taxes. If you have an S corporation, it's best not to hire the child directly by the S corporation. Instead, you would set up a family management LLC or family management company. You would pay that family management company as a contractor, and then the family management company basically pays the child directly. So it's a bit of an extra step. This only applies to S corporations because S corporations do have some extra unnecessary payroll taxes that you have to deal with. So you basically set up a family management LLC. That family management LLC hires a child, and then ultimately you pay the child through the family management LLC. It sends it directly to their bank account. Now, typically the company does have to be owned 100% by the parents, so this should be your own company. Only purpose of the family management company is to pay the kids. It doesn't do anything else. Now, the family management company does have to file a Schedule C, very simple filing, where the income is the money paid to the family management LLC. The expenses are the money paid to the child, which is the same number, so it comes out to 0 every year. So no taxes will be paid on the Schedule C, which is on a schedule that's attached to your 1040 on your income tax return. You can pay for the daily living expenses through the earnings. What you can do is you can deduct the amount that you paid them, and they don't have to pay any taxes on it. Good to start this strategy probably at the age of 7. I would say consult with your attorney, with your family attorney, to make sure that it's a sound strategy. It doesn't basically go against any child labor laws or anything like that. But 7, I mean your own child, to be able to handle certain tasks, I think that's a reasonable age to start them at. So it gets really sweet. I mean, you can have the child open up a Roth IRA account where you fund up to $6,000 in that account. You can get them a life insurance policy, a permanent policy that builds cash value over time. You can also get them some, basically, I mean, just get them like a college savings plan, maybe a 529 plan, and then maybe the rest you can say, hey, here's your spending money. Here's what I'm giving you on top of, or basically, here's what I'm giving you. And by the way, you do have some money set aside in the future. So just know that. Just put the bug in their ear. I think it's nice when somebody knows where their money is going, that they're not just working just to work. Give them some spending money, just a little bit. They don't need to spend that much. They're a child after all. They can buy some toys, buy whatever they need. And then ultimately, the rest of the money, you put it towards your future. You put it towards a Roth IRA account, a life insurance policy that builds cash value, and a 529 college savings plan or something similar. This will set your child up for success big time in the long run. Imagine starting them at 7. By the time they're 18, 11 years in the game, 11 years worth of work history. Man, that looks good on a resume. But they probably won't need a resume because you'll hire them once they graduate college. If they choose to work in a business, maybe they don't want to work in a business. Maybe they want to start their own business. Maybe they want to do something else. But I guarantee they'll probably want to be a business owner. They probably wouldn't want to be an employee punching the clock or anything like that after they've learned what you've taught them over these years. Once they're 18, you can still continue hiring them while they're in college. They'll just have to pay FICA at that point. And there's ways to avoid FICA by, hint, hint, setting up an S corporation for the child. So there's no family management company for kids 18 and over because that's when the self-employment tax kicks in. FICA taxes start at the age of 18 for companies owned by parents. And ultimately, you do issue a 1099 for the kids over the age of 18. There's nothing wrong with that. They would just set up an S corporation at that point, and they can avoid the FICA or the self-employment tax. And I would say, I mean, probably still don't pay them more than the standard deduction, although you can. It just leads to some extra taxes that you have to deal with. And they do have to file a tax return once they're age of 18, and you send them 1099s and everything like that. And then with health insurance, the child can stay on there up until the age of 26. So that's a pretty sweet benefit. And once they're 26, you can kick them off the plan, let them get their own health plan. Or, here's a smart thing. Now that the child has income and they're basically independent, you can essentially have them get their own health insurance policy at a much lower cost because they would only use the income of that child at that point. So consult with the health professional regarding that. But ultimately, this is something that can really help out with that. And we do have a question. Sorry to interrupt, but do you offer seminars or classes for information like this just to get a clearer understanding? Yes, we do, Matt. We do offer one-on-ones. That's part of our financial coaching service that we have for anybody who's looking to get coached on these topics. We'll do financial coaching. We'll groom you. We'll walk you through every step of the way on how to execute these strategies. and you can ask any questions that you have at that time. These are more for general information for the public. We try to get as detailed as we can. However, we know that it's not always applicable, or there might be information that might be missing. So we always encourage you to rewatch the recording. But at the same time, you will certainly benefit a lot if you take advantage of the service itself. Now, a few other things. So you can get Obamacare if you make over a certain amount with a complete subsidy. That's something important to note. Usually it's best for the kids to get their own insurance, like we stated. And then the child can also write off medical expenses, and I mean, it can get creative. Any health insurance premiums they pay, now they can use as a tax deduction as well on their own tax return. And the kid can have their own business. Remember, you can set up an S corporation for the child, and now they have their own business that they're managing. They're learning principles early. Life is a game of principles. Life is a game of habits. When you establish certain habits early, it will take you very, very far. So that's a bit, I mean, that's just one unique way to build multi-generational wealth, is to ultimately hire the child in your business. Sorry about the background noise. I don't know what's happening in Chicago right now. But it is one way to ultimately build wealth and provide for your family, is to basically hire your kids in your business. Teach them early. Start them young. If anything, they might not be doing something directly for the business, such as maybe you're a tax firm and they're learning how to do taxes. But they're learning principles such as working hard and smart at the same time. So they will be working hard, but they're also working smart because they're saving on taxes, they're investing, they're building for the future. They're working hard and smart. That's a principle that you're teaching the child early. They also learn business principles about how to keep books and records, how to file a tax return, how to get tax write-offs, the different investment accounts out there. I mean, you're teaching them early. They don't even have to do what the business intends to do, but you can teach them. Maybe you teach them how to do a tax return. Maybe you teach them how to take care, or maybe they shadow you while looking after a patient. You know, of course, you don't cross any confidentiality or any of those laws or anything like that. But I mean, I think it's a no-brainer. Like, some people are afraid, oh, my kid won't be interested in my business because it's complicated and all that. Start them off slow. Start them young. Start them off very, very slow. Start it off easy, and then maybe as they age and progress, maybe you give them more complicated tasks. Maybe something that might be relevant to the business, like, hey, would you be interested in learning how to save money on your taxes by, doing a tax return? You can portray it that way. Maybe they'll start doing taxes for you, and then maybe they take over the business in the future. Who knows? As a business, you should always have succession planning. I mean, at all times. Who's going to take over the business when you're gone? There always should be a succession plan, and it would be so nice if it could be your kids that are next in line for that business. I mean, I think it's a no-brainer, and I think you should do it. I know for a fact when my kids come in the future, that's something that I'll be doing for them as well, and they'll be set. They'll be set for life. They'll be on the right track. Think about what happens when you don't do this for your kids, when you're not doing these things. I mean, I don't even want to think about the consequences of that. So ultimately, what you can do here is they're building wealth over time. Like, they're actually making money. They're building wealth, compound interest, and they're learning money principles early. And then you benefit from the tax write-offs and the lesson that you're teaching the kids. It's a win-win for everybody. Nobody loses in this scenario here. Nobody loses. So these are just a few. Just wanted to bring up a strategy. Just a strategy that the quote-unquote rich use to get richer. It's very simple. You do have to get used to it to really get it down packed. But you too have access to these same tools. You don't have to be Bill Gates. You don't have to be Warren Buffett. You don't have to be Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg. You can be a business owner, you can be a real estate investor, and you can do the same things that we're talking here. It's within the tax code. Always seek the help of a qualified tax professional and attorney when executing a strategy. It's not complicated. However, it does require some getting used to, and it requires a professional to at least set up the strategy. At least set it up, go through some coaching and training. That's the service we offer. We do offer coaching and training for our clients and our anybody who's looking for service. And hey, if the second year you're like, I need more, then we'll give you more. If you're like, you know what, I'm good, I've got what I need, thank you for teaching me the strategy, I'll just keep going, and that's perfectly fine too. So it is important. This stuff is very important. As we know, tomorrow's not promised. Only today is here. Nobody knows what tomorrow holds. Nobody knows what the future brings. Not even our own president is basically anybody can catch COVID-19. Anybody can get sick. Anything can happen to anybody at any time. It doesn't matter who you are. Life is not guaranteed. Life is not a promised thing. The only thing you know is what's happening now, and you can use information that you know now to make better decisions in the future. But the future itself, you cannot predict. Nobody knows what can happen. So live your best life today, but always think about the future. One way to think about the future is to build multi-generational wealth for you and for your kids. So with that being said, definitely appreciate you all for tuning in to WGHC 98.3 FM, your voice and music, your station. My name is Chef Badu, and I look forward to continuously delivering you all some content. Thank you.